Or was a pair of knockoff jeans or a counterfeit watch connected to the drug trade and the violence that comes with it? It sounds like a stretch, doesn't it? Well, one of the most dangerous things about the illicit trade is its ability to hide in plain sight. The illicit trade is stitched into the clothes we wear. It's in our medicines, the ordinary things that keep our lives going. It's a complex ecosystem of counterfeit products, smuggled goods, contraband items, a system of commerce that finances criminal gangs and ultimately triggers violent crime and instability in the region. And it's everywhere. Because the illicit trade is so good at disguising itself, it seduces ordinary, law-abiding people with its charms. And it's a sophisticated, multi-layered dark economy with players big and small, all feeding off an industry that pulls you, the unsuspecting consumer, in. Brand protection expert Roger Montero is a veteran of the illicit trade war. He knows firsthand how difficult it is to combat because of the huge sums of money involved.
The illicit trade is an ever-growing global problem. It's a threat to all economies. It's a $3 trillion enterprise run by organized crime. No country is immune to illicit trade. Illicit trade is in all the it started out in the urban areas and now has found itself in all the most remote areas. Globalization and new technologies and the advent of these cell phones and all these things have created a very large audience for illicit trade.
It's a problem that puts down roots anywhere opportunity can be found. Counterfeit goods, contraband items, smuggled products, they've all worked their way into every corner of the region. We're in Guyana, the land of many waters. I'm on the iconic seawall. It's a bustling economy on the mainland of South America. It's also part of the Caribbean region. Now, with a global black market economy valued at an estimated $2 trillion each year, Guyana is by no means immune to the influence of the illicit trade in smuggled and counterfeit goods. Countries like Guyana are fertile ground for the illicit trade. Here, the authorities struggle to cope with a global industry that's so profitable, it's seemingly impossible to control. It doesn't help that the illicit trade is seen mainly as an economic problem rather than outright criminal activity. Law enforcement agencies and customs departments simply don't have the resources to fight the illicit trade. That makes several parts of the region, including Guyana, a wild frontier for illicit and contraband goods. There are few industries untouched by counterfeit or fake products. As we've already explored in our first episode, some of the everyday products we use are counterfeit and can be a health risk. The cosmetics industry is no exception. Bogus makeup has infiltrated the Guyanese market with consequences for legitimate retailers and users.
In Guyana, we have a few fake brands which flood our cosmetic markets. A few of these brands are the MAC, Kylie, Jordana, Black Radiance, and Black Opal. The percentage of retailers that sell authentic products are very few compared to the retailers selling fake products. The retailers have an issue now that it's not just about the loss in revenue, but also now the task of educating their customers the difference between the fake item and the original item. This would vary in terms of packaging, also in consistency. For instance, in the Jordana brand, there is no cream to powder, but in the fake one, there is. Also, customers have had the issue of skin rashes after using the fake items.
Now, as a user of cosmetic products, you'd probably think twice about using counterfeit makeup if you knew you were risking your health. Still, At street level, the average consumer is an active participant in the illicit trade. That doesn't mean ordinary shoppers and bargain hunters are criminals themselves. No. In some instances, they purchase counterfeit or smuggled goods simply because they're cheaper. That's what they can afford. A lack of consumer awareness in part allows the illicit trade to thrive. Consumers may know they're buying counterfeit or smuggled goods, but they probably don't appreciate the true impact of their support of the illicit trade. There are lots of folks looking for a bargain. In Guyana, it's no different. This is the Stabroek Market in the beating heart of Georgetown, Guyana. It's a strong contender for one of the noisiest places on the planet. Roughly 30% of the goods in this market are either smuggled or counterfeit. Now, with Guyana also funneling goods like that to other countries in the Caribbean region and to its South American neighbors, the land of many waters is a major player in the illicit game. Guyana is called the land of many waters with good reason. With 4 major rivers and countless tributaries, Guyana is home to a complex circulatory system of water courses. It's also a convenient transportation network for all sorts of trade, both legitimate and illegal. Illicit traders use Guyana's sprawling waterways to smuggle goods into the country and across unguarded borders to other South American neighbors. This is the backtrack. It's an unofficial entry and exit point between Suriname behind me and Guyana. It's a superhighway for the illicit trade. This point has its own economy that allows Suriname to pack its stores with fake and smuggled goods that amount to as much as 70% of the products in the country. In turn, Suriname is used as a hub for products of this nature going to Trinidad, Brazil, and back to Guyana. The illicit trade particularly favors fast-moving goods, products for which there is steady, high demand and they spend little time on the shelves. Alcohol is a fast mover, and where there's an appetite for the spirits, another vice follows not far behind. A big-ticket item in the illicit trade is this: cigarettes. In fact, roughly 6 out of 10 packs of cigarettes sold in the Berbice area of Guyana is considered to be illicit. Now, many people, mostly non-smokers, might say, well, how much more dangerous can an illicit cigarette be? Well, some of them have been found to contain mold and asbestos. Even the most die-hard smoker would not light up one of those if he saw those ingredients printed on the pack. Apart from cigarettes from questionable sources containing ingredients other than tobacco, there are also legitimately manufactured cigarettes smuggled throughout the region. Tobacco products typically attract high taxes. With such a large percentage of cigarettes making their way into Suriname, for example, through the illicit route, the loss of tax revenues to the Surinamese government is significant. It's useful to spend some time on cigarettes because they make a great case study for how the illicit trade works. In Suriname, for example, over the past 5 years, the trade in legal cigarettes has fallen by 2/3. Now, on the face of it, that would sound like a pretty encouraging statistic. Fewer people are smoking. Well, not exactly. Suriname and Guyana have large populations of smokers. So what's the real story? Well, it's not that fewer people are smoking. It's that more people are buying smuggled cigarettes and those purchases aren't registered. It's a hostile takeover of the tobacco products market by the illicit trade and it's gaining momentum.
Our estimate of the size of the illicit traded brands is about 25% and growing. It is as high as 50% in some areas, and those areas that are very remote from the city. Those brands are able to sell at as much as 200% cheaper than the cheapest brand that we are selling. The brands have been able to increase its coverage across the length and breadth of Guyana. And you can easily see those brands at very popular marketplaces or in most retail grocery type outlets.
Well, tobacco products, mostly from Trinidad. There is a duty-free zone there, and we suspect that most of it comes from the Trinidad region, Also Guyana, which has a river as a border with Suriname. And it runs along the entire east border, which is very difficult to control.
A vast network of waterways with many unguarded borders, a healthy demand for tobacco products, and authorities too stretched to put a dent in the trade. The perfect environment for illicit traders. Cigarettes are just one part of a vast array of fake and smuggled goods providing illicit traders with many income streams and a region-wide market to prey on. One of the more commonly peddled counterfeit and smuggled items is clothing. When it comes to brand name knockoffs, such goods circulate freely among Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, Guyana, Suriname, and Brazil. In Jamaica, for example, consumers have a taste for brand name clothes. In Trinidad and Tobago, consumers are into brands but are more interested in cheaper clothes. Either way, robust consumer appetites in Trinidad and Tobago create the ideal conditions for illicit traders to thrive. Trinidad and Tobago over the past decade has seen a surge in consumer appetites. The economy is, however, imbalanced with large income gaps. Many goods are beyond the reach of an ever-shrinking middle class and an expanding lower socio-economic grouping. This has created an opening for the sellers of illicit goods. People with less spending money still need clothes and shoes. If a consumer spends just about $30 US on a pair of counterfeit slippers, for example, if it falls apart, that's just the price of being poor. There is, though, another cost in this equation, one that is more out of mind than out of sight. We need to talk about another cost of the illicit trade that is perhaps not as much considered. This is a counterfeit Puma slippers, to be more precise, Fenty by Rihanna. Very stylish. You may pay $20 or $30 US for this snazzy pair of slippers, wear it for 2 months, and then they burst, and then you throw them away. And then you pay another $20 or $30 US for a similar pair of slippers, and then those burst and you throw those away, and so on and so on. These may not last very long on your feet, but they last forever in the environment like this mangrove or in our rivers or streams. That's another serious consequence of the illicit trade. So what's emerging here is a complex picture of the many ways the illicit trade affects the lives of citizens in the region. Some goods are just plain dangerous, others are of such poor quality they rob the consumer of hard-earned money. And governments across the region struggle to patch gaping holes in their tax net. This ultimately weakens their ability to deliver goods and services to their respective populations. So how can countries in the region put up a fight against the illicit trade? We'll tackle that in our next episode.